Welcome to Let's Start a Business, where ambition meets action. Hosted by Megan McDonnell, this show brings real stories and strategic insights from founders and entrepreneurs building from the ground up. This is Let's Start a Business.
Well, thank you so much, Michael, for joining Let's Start a Business. I really appreciate it. You're the first individual for this founder series, so I'm really excited because I absolutely love your story and what you've done with Fractional Hub. To just kind of dive in, can you give us a little bit of story, your background? What led you to Fractional Hub?
Well, firstly, thanks for having me. I didn't know I was the first one on the series or the founder series, so I'm very excited to be part of that. I guess so. My background, I mean, the long story, which I won't go into because it's not particularly exciting, but project manager, full-time career, did that for basically from 2013 up until COVID, and then like everyone, I think a lot of people's stories in one way or another changed during COVID, but mine wasn't particularly extreme or forced or anything. It was actually so in England, we had our first Christmas was cancelled. That's how we say it. We were in lockdown and didn't have a Christmas. And then coming up to the second Christmas, we thought, which I think was 2021, we thought we were going to have a cancelled Christmas, and me and my partner had been talking about trying to escape and travel and stuff. And so around November, we basically panicked, thought that Christmas was going to be cancelled, we'd get locked in the country kind of thing. And so we literally jetted off to Sri Lanka. I had arranged with my work to cut. Well, actually, I quit really to go freelance, and ended up arranging a 3-day-a-week contract with them, which to some extent one could argue was the beginning of Fractional, but not really something that had crossed my mind at the time. This was more, I just took a 3-day contract in the place that I already worked. And we traveled for 20 months around Asia, pretty much waiting for the next border to open. So we were in Sri Lanka for 3 months up until Thailand finally, the day that they opened their borders, we basically crossed. And then we were being in Cambodia at one point, literally sat at a hotel an hour from the border, just waiting for Vietnam to open. And so we did that for 20 months. I came back, did the thing that I stereotypically said I would never do, which was I went back into full-time employment very quickly. I really gave up on that dream very quickly, and did that for a bit. Hated it for 5 months because I had obviously ended up in this exact place that I was trying to escape, even if really it was COVID, but ultimately it was that kind of working pattern. I initially thought it might just be the place I worked, so I got sort of a promotion, led a PMO in this huge marketing company. Hated it even more. Passed my probation and had a 3 months notice period, which they asked me to join a 3 months notice period, and I was just there was no chance that I was going to accept that. And a week after buying a house and moving up north in England, I was I guess I'm going to go freelance then. I was very fortunate in the way that I went freelance. And sorry, this is turning into a really long story, so feel free to interrupt me.
No, totally. This is what we want. We want the stories. We don't, I think when we get to a certain point as a founder, we don't hear these type of stories. We hear oh, I'm here and this is what I'm working on. So you're in the midst of it. You're there, but you're in the midst of it. So no, I love it. This is great.
All right, then great. I just, you never know what's relevant, but I do think it's quite interesting because I had a chat with someone literally today, and this part in particular, where I was really lucky. That probation sort of thing, we ended up coming to an agreement that they were well, we still need to find someone to replace you. You haven't got a job yet. So I had this kind of weird limbo period where I kind of was just continuing, but very openly being allowed to flaunt the idea that I was trying to go freelance whilst in secure employment. And I had the company that I'd left, 5 months previous to that, who liked working with me. So it wasn't hard to kind of get 2 days a week back at that company, start paid. And so I never jumped in, even though it was a pretty big shock. I had just bought a house. I didn't jump cold into freelance. And so like obviously the recommendation is anyone, if you ever have an opportunity to do that, then do, but it's easier said than done. Lots of people kind of have to go, right, I've got 6 months of savings, I'm just going to take the plunge. And so I was a little bit lucky in that respect. And then from that into the world of fractional, I kind of just started posting on LinkedIn. Like I'd never done it before. I posted, I read lots of stuff that people had, that's what you're meant to do. I took a couple courses on how to post, why it's important, personal branding, all of that. I felt sick to my stomach doing it. I still kind of do. It's not my comfort. Like I'm getting more comfortable with it, but it's taken literally like 18 months. But I started posting loads. I got quite a lot of traction. Then I kind of discovered the notion of like fractional work and what it meant, and it just light bulb moment, like everything I'd ever wanted to work, like how I wanted it to work. And again, I got like an anecdote about that, but it's a really long story, so I won't go back into that. But it's been the dream scenario for how I work. So when I found that, I just, I can't even explain. Like it was probably the first time in my career where I was like, oh my god, I actually can find a way that I might like my career, because I've always been decently paid, good at it, but I've never enjoyed it. And I just had the idea that not everyone can have everything. I'm good at it, I get paid well, I don't like it, but oh well. And then like fractional has shown me a way of where I can actually get all three of those sides. And so I started posting about it like loads, because it was just like in England in particular, just like a topic that hadn't really been discussed. It was this big thing in America. And then I started getting like messages by loads of people being like, I'd love to work like that. Tell me about it. Let's have a coffee chat. And I just chatting to people for like no real reason, no end goal. Just met hundreds of people. And then eventually it got like a bit overwhelming to being like, can't just keep just talking to strangers for 30 minutes for no reason. Yeah. But there's clearly something here. And so I spoke to my friend Liam. We used to be in e-learning together. And so I kind of brain dumped everything I'd learned over the last year and sort of was like, make a course on this and let's sell it. Because that will be a way of like me not having to speak to people every other day, like half an hour. Obviously I still have to speak to people and I enjoy it, but it's too much at that point. And like, how do we get to a larger audience quicker? And off the back of that, it kind of just grew. The Fractional Hub was like this weird thing where like we thought we'd just do a course, and then we were like, we need a website. Oh god, let's get my partner involved. So then Rachel's like illustrated and branded and designed, and we're like, oh my god, now we have a website and it's a real company. And god, and like what other function? Oh cool, there could be a community. Oh, and then so originally it was like take the course and then be part of this community. Now it's much more like, here is just a community and there are these masterclasses, but oh, we have this great resource, the course. And we're still like finding our feet massively. Like I don't think we've pushed the course anywhere near enough, trying to find that balance, when none of us are marketeers or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of how the Fractional Hub came. It was some weird accidental evolution from a concept that I just massively fell into, but massively believe in.
Would you say that your decision, like even though it kind of took you took a journey to get to it, you making that decision, I want to work this way, I want to live this way, is kind of what led you to where you're at now?
Yeah, I mean, literally massively. It was the only reason it exists is because I was happy for the first time in my career, and then was like, oh, I bet you other people probably want to be happy in their career, and I think this would help a lot of people. And as I said, through the anecdotal, like the people messaging me directly saying, I want help with this. It was like one of those things, like we didn't set out to start a company. We had the audience before we knew it.
You talked about when you were posting this feel of dread, and sometimes you still get that. Can you talk a little bit more about that? What is that feeling, I guess? What is that? I mean, you've accomplished so much.
I guess it's the same like thing I think a lot of people have, almost like borderline arrogance or lack of arrogance, like the opposite of arrogance, as in like why would anyone want to like read what I say? And I guess also like, and this might sound really bad, but there's a lot of stuff I read on LinkedIn that's awful, that I really don't gel with. And I think to some extent, a lot of my content falls into that same category. I think if I was a stranger, I don't think I'd like what I post. And I know that sounds really bad, but it's not for everyone. You know what I mean? Like, not everyone digests content in the same way. Or takes value from the same type of content, which is absolutely fine. Even some of our masterclasses, some of them I've absolutely loved. Others, maybe for one reason or another, I maybe I knew that stuff or I didn't. I've sort of gone to that masterclass and gone, no, didn't, and I won't name obviously, but just thought I didn't really learn much. But then I got feedback from people being like, that was the best masterclass ever. And the same sort of thing happened in posting. Like I post, and as I said, I don't think I would necessarily enjoy my content, and maybe that's a terrible thing to say that I don't think anyone else would admit. But the thing that changed it was I got so many positive messages that it resonated with people and was helping people, and I think it was just really hard for me to understand initially why that would help or how, and maybe that's just a lack of confidence or something. But I got hundreds, thousands by now messages of like people I've helped, and so then it becomes like this really like, oh my god, I'm sort of making a difference. Isn't that quite nice?
Yeah, I think that was when because I saw your post through Sarah when you worked with her, and I was so enamored by there's this community and there's this learning, and that was what made me really excited to meet you and Liam, and I have to meet Rachel too at some point. But that is what, like, I think the originality of the 9 to 5, I was in the same predicament. I was never happy in my job. I was really good at my job, but it would suck so much out of me. And I could see, I would follow a bunch of founders, and I could see them I would look at their LinkedIn, and there would be this journey I would notice, and I'm like, that's what I got to do. That's who I am. I have to build this for myself. And then actually the first time I ever heard Fractional was from your community. So it just kind of clicked, and it makes so much sense. And the possibilities of it. And I think that it allows individuals to not only dream, but to have a roadmap on how they can get to that dream.
Yeah. And I think this is like, I've had like in the past, like business ideas or things, mostly because like, how do I just make money to break free from the 9 to 5? And this is probably the first thing where the money was like secondary. I just got really passionate, and I think that's why I'm saying it's like the first time I might actually enjoy my career. The idea of actually being like passionate about something like that was the kind of craziest thing for me. And so I'm mostly enjoying kind of the advocation for Fractional, kind of being the flag bearer at the front of the line, going, this is how we should all work, because I'm pretty convinced I'm going to be on like the right side maybe not the right side of history, because it's not a moral issue, but in terms of like the trend of where things will go, like I think in 10 years we'll look back and it will be really interesting. I can be like, I was not quite at the front, because I know that like in the US it has been like a growing trend for like 5 years, but particularly in the UK, pretty much like right at the forefront of this transition, because I read so much literature now about it, and by 2027 or something, every prediction is that like something like 57% of the world will be freelance, and that's only going to grow by 2030, and then with the increase of AI, there is just less and less rationale for people sticking to time jobs. I just had another podcast out, and they pulled out a quote of mine, which I mean, not to toot my own horn, but I really like, which is the idea that on average careers only last, or jobs in careers only last 2 years, which means on average you're probably looking for your new job every 18 months. That's just a really long freelance contract. That's no longer a job. That's just an extended freelance contract. So if the average person is only on an 18-month contract, that's not that much. And so this idea of like job security, and so it's already gone, like it's all already a myth. So people are like, oh, I don't know if I should go freelance or fractional, and how that might differ to what I'm currently doing, but like it's really not as different as you'd think.
Yeah. No, totally agree. What has been the hardest thing that you had not expected through your journey?
I guess it's like, maybe to contradict myself, it is like a bit of the unknown and being balanced in that. But to not contradict myself, it's the difference between the factual unknown, as in you don't know what's going to come up in 3 months, versus the idea in full-time work, you pretend everything's fine, but then could be made redundant at any point, but you ignore that point. So you don't have that fear in full-time work, but maybe you should have that fear. And I guess when I went fractional, I just had that fear. How am I going to get this set up? What's the future? Like, I've literally just bought a house. What are we doing here? But like I said, I've spoken to so many people who are part of 7,000 people layoffs at Microsoft, or I spoke to someone earlier today who's been laid off twice in the last 12 months. And that's not an uncommon story. So, but until that happened to him, he had probably never gone through his career as a full-timer ever being worried. And I had this new worry. And yeah, so that was probably like the biggest challenge, is overcoming that. And that mindset shift within that, like I'm saying, like, yes, I was suddenly worrying, but then it's a question of like, why am I worrying any more than I was before? If anything, I should have been worrying, and I wasn't, and life was fine. So maybe now I'm aware of the uncertainty. Now I can do something about that and be more prepared. And so shifting the mindset to going, no, both are just as uncertain as each other, but in this scenario, I actually know it's uncertain, so I get to plan for that.
What about what's taking up most of your energy right now?
The fractional hub, like, as a whole, because obviously on the side of that, like, that's the thing that we've done for 2 months, but like I have a full-time roster of clients. So like, as a project manager, COO, operations director of change, whatever it might be, but I actually am working with someone at the moment, cementing my sort of a new offer anyway within that space. So that's like this one thing. And then, as I said, like the fractional hub was like, hey, we did this course, we built that in like November, December, and again it was very naive, very okay, we've like, let's just build a course. That took like a few weeks, and then Rachel kind of helped to like jazz it up and make it look a bit nicer. And then it was like, God, like, how do we market this? How do we get this out? What do we actually do with it? And then, as I said, then it became like a community. Then there's suddenly masterclasses that we're doing like every other week, email campaigns and newsletters and blogs, and so that whole thing becoming like way bigger than it was ever meant to be, but in a way that is really exciting. But that's definitely taking up all our time. We actually just hired, we got an audit from a marketing person who might become our fractional marketing manager, which will be very, very nice and a big accomplishment. And probably, I don't know, it's not 100% confirmed, but in theory, have a community and partnership manager also joining the team. And so once they are both in place, I mean, the journey doesn't end, but like I'm going to feel such huge like relief to be able to give like kind of marketing and community to people, and be like, that's your job. I think I'll feel a lot happier then.
So this is something that interests me. So before you started hiring, what did that all look like? I mean, obviously you guys are taking care of all of that. So what would your day-to-day look like, or week? Just at a high level, how crazy is it?
Well, it's not crazy. It's more to do with the fact that there's a list of like 100 things of like, I want to do this to make it a better experience for everyone, and there's just a lot of internalized pressure of like how slow we're getting through that list, because we're doing sort of other things, and then even just like business as usual. So the idea that there's going to be a couple of emails a week that go out and trying to hit all the right marks of like advertising masterclasses, but also adding some advice and value and like blogs and stuff, like it just takes like a long time. So by the time we've done that kind of in an evening or a few evenings, the list of 100 things of like how can we make this a better experience for everyone, like it just wasn't moving. So we were just about doing, and you know there's an email going out on Tuesday, so it'd be Monday night suddenly writing it, or we're in different time zones, so Tuesday morning, literally like Liam in Korea writing it at the equivalent of like 4 a.m. UK time for us to come on at 8 a.m. UK time to just about get it out on time, because that's like the energy that we can give it at the moment. And then obviously on top of that, hosting masterclasses, facilitating the community, and also being on LinkedIn, because that's pretty much where our entire traffic comes from. So DMing people, having calls with people like non-stop, which is, the stuff I should be doing as like the founder, like growth mentality, like being that face. I'm very happy to do that, but on the side of also helping with like the community itself, the masterclasses, that emails, marketing, blogs, like, we're just not improving the site as well as we want to. Like we want to have partnerships. We do have some and discount offerings that we can offer our community, but we want more, and we want bigger and better masterclasses. We want more people in the masterclasses to make it more useful. We ideally want to grow a little bit bigger so we can take a day off work a week, so we can start facilitating more coaching workshops and more like individual like handheld things where we're really invested and involved. And we just haven't yet hit that kind of like velocity where we can kind of give it the time that we need. But with these 2 extra people, I think we now can. I mean, again, I think that was one of the things. I see people do this kind of thing and they just do like a side hustle, like with one person. But I don't want this to be a side hustle. I want this to be like genuinely legitimate, and I would rather it be with 5, 6, 7 people, all pulling in the right direction, than it to be what was originally me, then me and Liam, then me, Liam and Rachel. Like, I'm more than happy to dilute my shares. I kind of just want this to be a success.
Yeah, I get that. So with you onboarding more individuals, what systems do you have in place that are working for you? What tools do you really suggest founders and still entrepreneurs and small businesses take a look at?
Well, it was interesting because I guess because it's me, Liam and Rachel, and there's a tendency to be like, well, she's my fiance and Liam's like my best friend, so we've been terrible. And actually having the 2 extra people on board has been really useful, because we're like, oh, we can't just like mess around on WhatsApp. Like we need to like legitimize this a bit, because how we're working is like very much just a bunch of friends working together. Like it's not as a business should. So we've actually just got ClickUp, which I've used loads in the past as like a project management tool. So now I spent the last couple of days basically getting everything from our head, everything from the marketing audit, everything from our partnership manager, and just chucking it onto this board, prioritizing it. And so for the first time, we have like a real visual roadmap now. So it's a silly thing because I'm a project manager, but because I've put so much time into a mixture of my actual like day job, and then in the setting of this company, I'm the founder, face of it, growth manager or whatever it might be. It's been really hard to have my project management hat on in like my own company, which is, I find it a little bit embarrassing in the sense of like I would like to do so much more, but just from an energy and capacity, it's not the best use of my time. But now with everyone else coming on board, it's like, oh, actually maybe I can take my foot off a little bit of a pedal here, set up some systems, get everyone up and running, and then just keep it spinning. And so we've now got that board, and I think that's going to change a lot, which is pretty much going to be the central hub of everything we do. Beyond that, our whole community and course is set up in Kajabi, which is a CRM interface anyway. So our CRM platform, course creation tool, like it's all in one. So we only use Kajabi for that. And then the only other tool that I currently use that I find really useful. Beyond, I have a premium subscription to ChatGPT because everyone should, because it's bloody amazing. I use OneCal, which is a calendar app that two-way syncs all of your emails. So if client A books you, it automatically books you in client B into your personal email, into whatever email you want it to be, and it maps it in the right way. So like client A books you on client B, you will know client A booked you, client B will know that you're busy. Like they won't they won't see all the information of stuff that they shouldn't be seeing, kind of thing.
That's a big one, because like I try syncing my calendars to my client calendars and it never works. Like it ends up
Well, yeah, you need like OneCal, because otherwise it tends to be like one-way sync in a lot of things. So you can get client A to appear in client B, but not necessarily the other way around, and that's pointless, basically. And so, I mean, I nearly burnt out working fractionally at the beginning without that tool, due to the manual process and the inevitable messing up of that process. And then having meetings after meetings all at the same time, and it was a nightmare. So like OneCal was like my number one fractional lifesaver.
That's awesome. I'm going to check. Yeah, I was reading through Fractional Hub and I saw that was one of the things that you guys recommended. So I'm definitely going to check that out. What is one thing that keeps you up at night?
That I know that the Fractional Hub, like I've never been more convinced of an idea that the Fractional Hub should be successful. So if it's not, like, it's us. Like the concept, the idea behind it, someone's going to make it. I mean, other people, slightly different markets, slightly different concepts are making a success of it. But like the thing we're specifically doing, I think we're at the most perfect moment of the market. And so if there's a huge weight of, if this fails, it's like because we messed it up.
What, through processing that, what's kind of, how do you center yourself?
Take every day as it comes. I'm very lucky, as I said, like having, I think, Liam being like my best friend and Rachel being my fiance, we are all able to have separate wobbles. We just need to make sure that all three of us don't wobble at the same time, which hasn't happened yet. But there's been moments of each one of us being like, oh my God, fuck this. I gotta quit. Like, this is a terrible idea. This is way too much. And then like the other two people being like, no, we're like a few weeks, we get a marketing manager and we sort this out, it'll be fine. And then like you have one good night's sleep and you wake up the next day like really excited again for everything. Or, there's been a point, I think I had a really bad week at one point, which I think followed directly after Rachel having a really bad week. But when I was having a bad week, she was like, what are you doing? I've had my back. I'm so on board now. I'm so excited. Like, why are you now having a bad? This is ridiculous. And so I think we've been fortunate from that side of things.
So tell me a little bit more about Fractional Hub. Again, it's really exciting. What are you kind of envisioning this going towards?
Yeah, so obviously we have a free community we launched 2.5 months ago. We have about 550 people who've signed up, which is like way beyond our sort of initial expectations. I mean, we launched like in the first month with like 250 or something. And I remember days before our waitlist and stuff, and me and Liam going, it'd be nice if we had like 30. Okay, no, I'm gonna punt for 50, and then like to have like 250 people join, and then for that to have kept growing, and our newsletter like mailing list is something like 850 and stuff. So like that was really cool. But yeah, so we have a free membership that basically just gives you access to a community forum of like-minded people who are probably, and it's not necessarily how we saw it at the beginning, but mostly curious people, freelancers who have just heard the word fractional, maybe full-timers who are considering going freelance, but then they've had fractional or one sense or another. We do also have a bunch of people who are quite experienced in fractional, but it's probably an 80-20 split, which is quite nice because it means we have people in the community who've been there, done it, people to lean on. But I would say that most people are kind of curious. It's probably where we're a relatively niche position in the fractional market, because fractional markets as a whole kind of tailored towards C-suite level, and therefore there's this assumption that everyone's experienced. But like, we've got COOs and CFOs who are joining the community, but just because they're experienced at their job, like, doesn't mean that they automatically intrinsically know what to do in a fractional capacity. It's still a very different mindset shift. And then beyond that, I'm a big advocate for the notion that, like, although fractional by its true definition has to be like strategic and embedded within an organization, there are other roles below C-suite that can be done fractionally, and I do that as a project manager. You can run PMOs strategically. You can be involved and embedded within a team, only working a couple days a week across the week. And so we have a lot of new people, sort of new job roles in that sense, joining the community to see what they can get from it. And as I said, it comes with a few resources, like a contract template, a pricing calculator, like a really good way to price yourself on a day rate. And then every now and again, we do a couple free events within that community, either like a Q&A, which just enables people to get on a call with me, ask me questions about Fractional, about the Fractional Hub, anything really that they want. And that's like on a monthly basis that we're going to reintroduce. We had it in our launch month, and we need to get back on that for June and start making it a regular monthly. And we also have in the free community something we call a members spotlight, and this is actually someone from the paid community doing a 30-minute or so kind of presentation about their fractional journey. So the idea of that is it's a way for people to get a little bit of an understanding of like what is someone else going through, and it really doesn't have to be someone who's super experienced. It's just someone from our paid tier offering their advice and value. And so it can just be, this is where I am on the journey. I only started a couple months ago. This is the type of thing I'm doing. Here's how I've created my offer from what I've learned. Here's the things that so far in 2 months has worked for me. Here's what hasn't. And a little bit of just a Q&A and a community build of like people just getting an understanding of like everyone's going through this and we're all here to support each other.
Thanks, Michael, so much for giving a rundown of Fractional Hub. So anybody that's kind of wanting to get or go fractional, what would be your advice?
I mean, I can always be the really cheeky person and say, head to the Fractional Hub, go buy the course. But that's the horrible me version of that. The main thing that I've learned is, and this might change over the next 5 years, but to be honest, like, for me and my skill set, I don't want it to. There aren't many jobs posted about fractional work, like anywhere. I've seen a couple, and usually mislabeled as fractional, and really it's just some part-time role. But so the number one advice is like, and I'm sure like 100 people have said it to most people in the past, is be present on LinkedIn, be someone, post. Don't be the 99%, try to be the 1%, or I've seen different figures, either 1 or 4% of people post on LinkedIn, but it's definitely no more than 4%. So it's not particularly hard to be noticed. Consistency is key. I have a lot of chats with people saying, I followed your post for weeks and now they're messaging me, and so you'll never know which post does what. I get really frustrated when I see people say this post converted X amount of leads, and I just think, like, did it? Or like, how do you know it's that? Like, unless everyone is messaging going, I read that specific post and that's why I'm messaging you. But in my experience, it's not. It's more like I followed your journey, or like I've seen a lot of your posts recently and decided to finally message you, kind of thing. So posting a lot, and then yeah, like DMing, networking, joining communities. Not necessarily always looking for a job, which is I think why communities are good. Just meeting people for the sake of meeting people can be really useful, because it's not necessarily the clients that you always want. You might want the complementary roles to yourself. Like if I'm a project manager and you're in marketing, if I get a fractional role at a company, then we know that company is open to hiring fractional. They're probably not going to hire another project manager, but they might hire like a marketing person in that. So maybe I'm the person that can do their intro to you. Like, So I think it's useful networking. Or similarly, I might have someone might come back to me for a project management role, and I might not be free, so I'll recommend another project manager. So I think it's about having those conversations where you're not always trying to close. And the same is with clients. Just meet them. It's very rare to be like, hey, I do this job, and then go, cool, have this job. Like, it's normally much, a longer process than that, which to some it can feel really arduous. It's quite a lot of effort, and I won't sugarcoat that and say it's not. But again, like to the person I was speaking to earlier, the one who was made redundant a couple of times, he just got off the 8th interview and then they ghosted him for like a full-time role or a contract role, I think that was, but it was still his eighth interview. Fractional roles don't tend to have an arduous process in that. I haven't shown my CV for 18 months. You tend to vibe well with a client if you can present their pain points clearly and show that you're the person with authority to fix that, which is usually helped from the fact that you're posting lots and you have an air of authority and you've got lots of people commenting and stuff. You've got testimonials, your LinkedIn page, and everything is like perfect. Then it can be a 30-minute call and then they just sort of hire you, because they're only hiring you 1-2 days a week, maybe for a month, 2 months, and then maybe an ongoing embedded relationship is the aim. But it's usually a very easy, like, well, if we don't like you, we can just break this off really quickly. Yeah. And so that conversation is really quick. So even if the rest feels quite arduous and uncomfortable, I'd argue it's no worse than 8 interviews and like being the 1,000th applicant on an easy apply and all of that. So it's just a different thing. So again, a mindset shift, one that you're more in control of. And lastly, like, it's also worth noting, because those roles aren't advertised, and a lot of the people don't even know what fractional is when you're speaking to them. So you have to be an educator as well, which again links back to the fact that posting is really useful, because I've now get to be known as the person educating people. So I've got an air of authority with it. But when I speak to clients, the phrase I used is it's really difficult to open the door, but when you do, you're the only one there to walk through it. So there's none of that 1,000 people going for the same job. The job doesn't exist. So finding the job is the difficult thing, like the existence of the job. But once you find that job, from going from A to actually like B and being hired can be really quick.
Yeah. It's funny how you say that, because that's exactly how it kind of happened for me. I built these relationships over months, and then somebody that I built a relationship with was like, hey, Megan, there's this role. And he connected me with the individual. We had like a 30-minute conversation, and then a day later, they're like, hey, can you get started? So it's exactly how it happens. It's just starting with that relationship first, being authentic and making sure that you're not going it for the sale. You're going in it for the relationship and building it. Because it's maybe the long route, but it's the right route, I guess, is the way that I see.
And I think it's most difficult when you start, because if you imagine that every relationship is different and nurtures and completes at like a different rate, you go from 0, and then all you're doing for 6 months in theory is nurturing. Obviously, you hope that you're going to get a quick win early on, and that'd be amazing. But there could be like this really slow thing where nothing's happening, nurture. But then you've got like the people who you first started speaking to like on week 1, by 6 months, they're offering you a job. But then the people you were speaking to a month later, so now 7 months in, they're offering you a job. And so it's staggered in a way that if it works and you're consistently doing it and consistently lead generating, hopefully, and obviously there's no guarantees and it's all about your own offer and who you are and stuff, but like in theory, you hit a snowball effect. So where there's all this upfront work and it might feel like daunting and nothing's happening, but then those leads hopefully will start like fulfilling and coming to fruition.
Yeah.
So that's the hope. It's what's happened with me, a few other people I know doing it, and yeah, I think that's the thing to remind yourself of. It won't necessarily be something you can just like switch on.
Yeah, you got to go out there first and let it build and let people see.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks for tuning in to Let's Start a Business. If this episode brought value, be sure to follow the show and share it with others on the entrepreneurial journey. For tools, insights, and the latest updates, visit linkedin.com/in-megefficiencyedge. Until next time, keep building, stay focused, and remember, no one builds alone.